From my earliest memory, my mother doted on me. And of course, I loved that. But as life rolled on, I began to realize there was a little more to it than mother always being on my side. I've already described somewhere else about my relationship with my father, how my first memory of him was him saying at me in an angry voice, "Go ahead and cry, you little son of a bitch." But I, as time went by, I realized more and more that mom and I were kind of a team, leagued up in defense against my father's authoritarian, autocratic, angry uh, treatment of us. But I remember one fine day, mother came down to kiss me goodnight, and it had to be after I was around 10 years old because that's when I moved downstairs. But she was wanting to kiss me goodnight, and I didn't really quite want her to. And she was a little put off by that, and I was kind of pulling back. And I asked myself at the time, why are you pulling back away from your mother? She loves you. She wants to kiss you goodnight. And two thoughts formed in my mind. One of them was that she couldn't quite protect me from father's rage. And so while she wanted to, he was so overpowering in his fury that she was somewhat defenseless herself and unable to really fully defend me. And that's all psychological, sports fans. Dad never beat her or beat me, but still, he was very frightening when he had a towering rage. The other thing, other than feeling like she couldn't totally protect me, was I had this funny feeling. And it was almost like something I could visualize at the time. That if I went all the way over into, you might say, mom's camp, that somehow I would then be totally untethered from dad, and that somehow that seemed to me that that would be really dangerous. And I don't know if I totally understood it then or now, but it was a very strong feeling I had. But as far as calling this mom's Oedipus complex, dad was so dethroned when I came along. And when I was in my 30s, mother told me one day, "I've waited until you're 30 years old to tell you this, son, but when I married your dad, uh, my sister had recently died. And so then I had my sister's hand-me-down husband. I was living in the house that she'd lived in with him for 10 years. So it was the hand-me-down house. And I had your sister, who was my big sister's child. So I had hand-me-down child, hand-me-down husband, hand-me-down house. And then you came along, and she said, I used to sit and hold you in my arms and think, this is mine. Wow. No wonder Dad was so jealous, because he'd been married to my sister's mother for 10 years when she died, and they had been childless, and they had been free to hunt together, fish together. They had bird dogs, they had a canoe, they'd paddle across the river to visit his parents in that canoe. They were just together all the time. They were the same age. They were both very powerful personalities. They both were college graduates. And then my aunt, his first wife, died. Then he married my mom, and a year or 2 months later, I came along. And all of a sudden, he didn't have the full attention of his wife. He had this little demanding rival there, crying and demanding attention, and mother was giving it to me excessively, I think, and he was just so mad. And I look back over my life, and I won the Oedipal rivalry. Sigmund Freud, I learned recently, had a saying that a woman's one true love is her son. And I think that's true. I've mentioned that to a couple of other people since, and they've said, hey, that's an interesting idea. I think it's right. So this was the Oedipal complex. And finally, late in my dad's life, he began to become somewhat feeble physically. And mother kind of turned on him, and I ended up my relationship with my father kind of sticking up for him when my mother would lash out at him and take it out on him what he'd done in the first few years of maybe the first 15 years of their marriage, that he'd been so angry and domineering. So it goes out around and it comes back around. And so I ended up with a lot of loving feelings toward my father, no feeling of wanting to be resentful and have revenge at all. But I also realized as those thoughts trickle in that I won the edible struggle. And I defeated my father, which I wasn't really out to do, except early on when he was so angry. I never had homicidal fantasies, but I was pretty angry back and pretty scared, and I wanted to protect my mom. I was my mom's little protector. And one of the things she did that was sort of unfortunate in retrospect was that when she and I would be there alone in the daytime and she'd be doing something like churning the butter, she would complain to me, and sometimes tearfully, about the way Dad treated her. And she wanted me to be her little uh, protector. And psychologically, I was. So I guess that's the Oedipal complex.